Welcome to the Now, I'm Ashley.
I'm Gus.
You guys, almost 2 years after the game launched, No Man's Sky is delivering a huge update. They're calling No Man's Sky Next. That looks like it's finally gonna make it the game that we thought we were getting in August 2016.
I can't believe it's been that long.
I didn't think it had been that long until I actually started counting the months back, but it has been 2 years. They just put out a trailer showing off No Man's Sky Next that has multiplayer, proper multiplayer bodies. We're gonna have bodies, you guys.
This is next generation level stuff.
Crazy stuff. So it's time to, I guess, ask the big question: Is it time to forgive?
Is it time for Yes Man Sky?
Wow, I don't even know how to follow that. End video. So I just kind of wanted to go over, because it has been 2 years, what was promised that was missing in the game.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people have left the game, it may or may not be coming back, so we can talk about what we thought we were gonna get versus what we got. But also, it's important to keep in mind the developers have put out 3 huge updates so far, and none of these are paid, by the way. They're all free updates, that have added a lot of features to the game, like the ones that we thought.
Again, features we thought we were getting to begin with.
Yeah, and they've been clearly like stepping their way to this No Man's Sky Next point. So some of the big ones, obviously multiplayer was the big one that was pointed to as the big broken promise.
Didn't they say initially that when they launched, they were still saying there was multiplayer?
Yeah, so let me find here. In fact, there was an interview with Game Informer. There have been a couple of different interviews where they were like, yeah, you know, the only way you'll be able to see what you look like is by
Someone
other
else's
people.
perspective, yeah.
Yeah, it was, they asked, will you be able to play with your friends? He said, yeah. They said, is there a competitive element to this game? And he said, if you want that, yes. Can you grief other players? A little bit. Can you customize the look of your character? Sort of. Do you ever get a good look at your character? You can see other characters and they can see you. So the implication there being that you would know kind of what you looked like when you saw other characters. There was also, quite infamously on launch day, him saying that it was so unlikely that people would find each other that quickly, given how expansive the galaxy is. And then
People found each other.
This first day, 2 streamers got to the same planet, went to the same location, couldn't see each other, and that's sort of when the jig was up.
Yep.
I'm honestly not sure what Sean Murray was thinking, but
Maybe he thought nobody would ever run into each other?
I mean, it did sound very heavily implied that multiplayer is in right now, and it's taken 2 years to get to the point where it's actually gonna be there, so I don't know how long it could keep up the ruse, but we are getting it. Some other big promises. One of them, there was AI, like animal AI complexity. Like animals are gonna have friends and they're gonna eat each other. It's gonna be this whole thing. And what we ended up with was a bunch of randomly generated monstrosities wandering, pretty randomly around the area. Some of them would be aggressive, some of them would run away, but that was about the extent that anyone observed.
They seemed very dumb.
Yeah, planets. They were supposed to orbit, and they were supposed to rotate on their axis, and it turns out none of that happened either. The sun is a skybox. The planets were all the same, as far as they just sat there hanging in space like a really
Just like a level hanging
Yeah.
out in space. No real dynamic effects. There was no day-night cycle, really,
Yeah.
because there was no rotation.
Yeah, the sun would come up and go down, but you weren't rotating anywhere. It was
Right.
all sort of manufactured. And resources, initially they were saying that based on how far it is from the sun or these other environmental factors, that'll change what resources are available on these planets. At launch, that didn't seem to be the case. They seemed more or less random.
Just random, yeah.
And that is also the kind of thing that's changing. They have, and again, a lot of this is updated since then.
Yeah, we're comparing launch versus...
Yeah, this is just talking about launch. We'll get into the updates because I think they did a good job delivering on some of these things through the updates. Trade, they said that you could get in good with different factions and that would be important. And in the end, it was just sort of like, who are you trading with? What do you want to trade?
Right.
And they also had said that you could theoretically play the game as a trader if you never wanted to partake in combat or mining or anything like that. You could be a trader, ferrying goods from one system to another system to get the best deals. And at launch, that was not a viable way to play.
No.
Ship customization, they said that every ship would be unique and different, and what they ended up with was a different cosmetic shell, and here's what number of slots you have in it. But essentially, any ship could become any other ship inside. Survival, they made it seem like the planets would have all kinds of different hazards, and there's acid,
there are some,
it would be cold or it would be hot, but they became annoyances rather than any major concern. There were some extreme biomes, but they were limited and they were all also kind of samey. So that's the short version.
In case you don't remember from 2 years ago.
Right. Now, since the game came out, they've already put out 3 major updates. There's Foundation, Pathfinder, and Atlas Rises. Foundation was, as it's called, it was supposed to be the building blocks for the additional features that they were going to add in. The Foundation update added base building. So you could claim a base and set a home planet, and then you could teleport between the base and the space station and get back to it really easily. You could build shelters against storms. So if you're in extreme weather and you've got nowhere to go, you could maybe build a shelter. Farming system, a bunch of new plant types that could be cultivated in your new farms, either outdoors or in these hydroponic ones. The ability to deploy equipment in the field like automated harvesters, signal scanners that would find points of interest near you, the ability to build a save point, so you could build one, save it, and you're good to go. And communications terminals, so you could kind of interact with other people by leaving a message that then they could maybe find.
It's like an answering machine, or like a whiteboard at home. You leave a message and someone else comes by and finds it.
Right, they just walk up to some random answering machine and go, I see.
He went to the store.
Yeah, one of the big ones I thought was actually the ability to purchase freighters. That was one of the major things. It was like base building, freighters. That was the Foundation, where you could buy a freighter and then that would expand your storage. Because if you were playing the launch game, you remember the frustration at having to try to manage, here's what I can carry, here's what the ship can carry, and you're constantly ferrying stuff to the space station and back to sell your goods, make your money, so that you can buy whatever you can't find locally, craft your items to get through the next wormhole. So that this was a huge change because you could store so much stuff. You could also recruit NPCs to man stations on freighters. They also they added biome-specific resources, and that was a good thing for them to have, as well as craftable items that you would need for biome-specific resource gathering.
Yeah, that's great, because then that finally gave you incentive to try to seek them out and find special materials that you couldn't find elsewhere. But of course, before it was just like go to any planet and every resource is available. Theoretically, every resource could be available on every planet.
Right, and then if you got lucky and you got to the planet with those little orbs, and finally now you're in the money, but then you never wanted to leave it because you couldn't find your way back. They did also do a lot of tweaks for the UI, so like motion blurring, temporal anti-aliasing, ambient sounds. They did some tweaks to planet generation, all that kind of stuff. But the major things in that first update were base building, freighters. And then they followed it with a Pathfinder update, which was vehicles, planetary exploration vehicles. So you could they had 3 different kinds.
At launch, your options were either to traverse on foot or to get back into your ship and then fly around and land every time.
Yeah, so having a planetary exploration vehicle, huge help. There were basically 3 different versions. The Nomad, which is like light and doesn't store very much, but you can go across water and it's really fast and agile. Or the Roamer, which is middle of the road, and then the Colossus, which is gonna store all your shit, but it's a little unwieldy. And then they added things like new traders, currency, permadeath mode. They added some weapon and ship specializations. So there we're starting to get the promise of, or the delivery on the promise of the ships will be unique. There's like A, B, C, and S classes. And they have each different types of ships will have different strengths. So they could be fighters, shuttles, haulers, or explorers. Those were a couple of the big things for that update. There's a ton more. Did I mention permadeath? Permadeath.
You did mention permadeath.
And then the last big update, Atlas Rises, was the one that added like a 30-hour story. So there was a story content there. They regenerated the star system so that different systems have wealth and economy and conflict. So they started to make the trader path of playing more viable because you could go to this system with this kind of economy, stock up on these resources, and then take them to a different economy system where they're worth more.
It's just fleshing out the existing worlds to give them kind of life and character and have this variety where you can, like you said, move resources around.
Absolutely, and they added more exotic planet types, crashed freighters, which was pretty cool. New NPC guilds. They've made some dramatic improvements through the updates as well to the UI, to the menu system, so you can track your missions and your log and where you've been. So if you do want to get back to that planet that got you real rich, you can do that.
Let's be honest. At launch, it was very difficult to even figure out how to jump between systems. Like some basic navigation in the map was difficult to figure out to begin with, and then once you did even figure that out, getting back to somewhere was near impossible.
Yeah, so they made a ton of improvements in that regard. And now this new update, Next, based on the trailer they've put out, and they've been very, very careful about what they message since launch.
Seems like they've learned a bit about that.
Yeah, so they've been vague only up until they drop an update, pretty much. And so that way they're not promising something that is not in the update, which I think has been a great change.
Yes.
But they just put out this trailer because July 24th, this update is coming out. Also, the game coming out on Xbox One. So if you've been waiting for the game on Xbox One, congratulations, you're getting it, and you're getting the full version.
Maybe.
As far as we can tell, yes. But it's adding the full multiplayer experience, third-person perspective. Based on the trailer, it's a pretty significant graphic overhaul as well. Again, that one I have to manage my skepticism on stuff like that because we also got really beautiful landscapes in the trailers for the original game, and a lot of those didn't quite add up.
Oddly enough, No Man's Sky taught us to manage the hype train.
Right.
Yeah. And here we are again. Yeah.
But they're adding ringed planets. Hey, what's up? They are here. The rings have arrived. You can build bases anywhere on a planet. You can assemble a fleet of frigates, and so you can deploy all these different freighters around the galaxy as you're exploring, and you can have a command frigate to control them from. And you can invite your friends onto your command frigate, and there's a terminal where you can get multiplayer missions.
Nice.
So, a lot of improvements for this one. I've been pretty harsh on No Man's Sky. When the game came out, I played it. I played around 40 hours, but it was very difficult for me to reconcile the game that I was playing, which was, an okay survival-ish game, and it was kind of zen, mining resources and then moving on to another planet and seeing what that ambiance was like before I moved on to yet another one with no real path anywhere, not really caring about anything. So it was hard to reconcile that with the game that I had thought I was going to be playing.
And the game we had kind of been promised as well.
Yes, which was I could do this co-op, I could find my friends in the world and not in the world, in the galaxy, and we could explore together and have a good time, and we'd be on this epic journey. And what it turned out was just kind of meh. But what between the last 3 updates and what Next is putting out, I feel like we're finally getting there.
So I played a decent amount of No Man's Sky when it came out. I have not played any of the updates, and I was probably in the same boat as you. It's like I was disappointed that it wasn't the game we thought we were getting, but it was okay. I didn't hate it as much as most people, but it wasn't like a game that I wanted to go back and play. But based on what they've released and what it seems like this trailer is promising, it seems like it's time for me to give it a second chance. Especially because I already bought it. I already own it. It's like, oh, I'll just install the update.
Now it's like a free game.
Right. Now it's like, oh, the thing I paid for a couple of years ago. It's like the Kickstarter model or early access. I paid for this game a couple of years ago. Now it's finally the game I wanted.
If only I'd known it was early access.
Right, then I would have waited.
But, yeah, and then we could have skipped the whole disappointment phase and gone straight into the, this is amazing
You could have been
phase.
disappointed by game launch delays as opposed to bad game releases.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something to be said as well that the developers, I feel like Hello Games could have taken the money and run. Mm-hmm. It would be after the community rejection of No Man's Sky. It was one of the few games that was losing sales on Steam. People were demanding refunds on PS4. Mm-hmm. It was not in a great place. No one was happy about the disparity between the marketing promises and the actual delivered game. They made so much money though. Even losing some Steam sales and such, they still sold a ton of copies. They could have relocated to an island somewhere, kicked up their feet, and never touched video games or turned on the internet ever again. But they stayed quietly and they continued to work and to put out these updates. They made the right move by not charging for any of the updates. And I've regained a lot of respect for the development studio based on how they've handled it.
It's amazing because No Man's Sky has become the trope and the leading example of why you manage your hype before a game comes out. And it's really used, that game in particular is used as a rallying cry for don't pre-order games, wait until a game comes out to actually see what it is that you're paying for.
Or it could be No Man's Sky.
Right.
It's like the boogeyman. Of all the things that you could be, you just don't want to be No Man's Sky.
Yeah, you don't want to be No Man's Sky and you don't want to be Battlefront 2.
No, absolutely not. So let's also make sure no microtransactions.
Yeah. Which they haven't done.
No beta wins. No, it's been great. So I'm actually excited. I'm planning on playing this game again when this update is out. Do you want to play, Gus?
Yeah, let's play.
Yeah.
Let's do a stream. Oh wait, I might be out of town.
Well, regardless, I'm sure we can find some time to play the game together, and we will be intergalactic friends, and we will finally have bodies.
We'll go on missions and send freighters places.
Yeah.
Good. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, let us know if these updates, specifically No Man's Sky next to the update that's finally adding multiplayer, has gotten you interested in playing the game again.
Or if it's got you interested in picking up the game for the first time. I'm curious to see how many first-time people are going to get started in the game now.
Yeah, I'm going to keep a close eye on the concurrent players. Last I looked, it was maybe a week ago, concurrent players for No Man's Sky was like 1,500. So there's still a player base for the game. It's not huge, but I'm curious to see if with this new update,
if it goes up.
It grows again. Because at one point, when it launched, it had something like 190,000 concurrent players, and obviously it's a fraction of that now. But what can it get back?
Let's see.
Now that No Man's Sky is launching.
We'll know in a
next
week.
All right. Let us know if you're going to play it for the first time, if you're going to return to it, or if you're just burned for good in the comments down below to make sure you get all of the awesome news about video games and talks about video games and the whatever about video games. Basically, we're just all about video games. Make sure you like this video, and if you're new to our channel, subscribe to the Know. They're great, by the way.
Good.
Very happy. Can I go ahead and just mute that? Yeah, so they have a way better autofocus. They're 4K, and they've got a focus wheel. Like they've got a wheel on the front that you can change to be whatever, and we change it to focus.
It's like a real camera.